Rusty Deals from Minnesota is Rust. What we have before us is a 1994, and I'm just going to read the listings. 1994 Chevrolet GMT 400 K2500. And apparently, automotive manslaughter has occurred to this poor vehicle here. The windshield doesn't exist in reality enough to put the identification sticker on it. So they have to put it on the hood, which is glorious. I have mentioned before that it is common after a good snowstorm here in Minnesota, you will see four-wheel drive vehicles, typically pickups, hit Craigslist, Facebook, Marketplace, auction sites, etc., that look like this because people, drivers with believing in their supreme automotive ability, will accelerate and drive rapidly in snow, ice, etc. But as you can see, they don't decelerate that well. I am a big believer and proponent in snow tires, and that'll help you some. Typically, if you can outbrake the person in front of you or behind you or next to you, that really helps. But gravity and momentum and Isaac Newton would disagree with other things. So, I don't see any snow tires here. Anyway, what I do see though is if the listing is correct and it says K2500, I'm also counting the lugs on the wheels and I get to 6. Maybe my eyes are getting old, that's true, and the picture may not be clear, but this could very well be the kindest rare light duty 3/4, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But taking a look at this picture, I don't see a panel that has not been impacted by rapid deceleration. In a good roll, I try to stop, going around a corner, boom, you start doing some barrel rolls, and something you won't forget. So you get a couple more interesting views here. There's a very clear picture of a 6-bolt rear end. So these light duties, if I remember, a regular pickup from these eras would have a gross vehicle of like 7,200 or 7,600 or something like that. A 3/4 ton was around 8,400 or 8,600. And then a full ton, of course, would be a couple hundred pounds more than that. Mainly the rear axle had a stiffer set of coils or leaves. I can't remember what these years have in the back, but it would be pretty stiff to haul whatever you needed to haul or pull whatever you needed to pull. So these light duties had essentially stiffer springs on the suspension, but not full floating or semi-floating rear axles. So they were kind of a blend of each. And I know we had a relative in the family that had one, and I thought it had the wrong badges glued on the side. And then he was talking about, well, no, this is whatever. And that was the early 90s, so around the same gen. But yeah, kind of a weird mixture of some heavy duty things, but really not heavy duty enough to do what you needed to do. I mean, it didn't cost you any more to get license and tabs for a full 3/4 than a light duty 3/4, or the LD you'll see listed sometimes. Okay, so here is the rear driver. You see kind of that roundish indentation in the top of the box, almost like it rolled and hit a tree or a pole or something like that. One thing I do like is the back of the cab. This is an extend cab. It's still pretty square, so that's promising. A little bit of strength there, help keep it in place. You can definitely see Minnesota rust doing what it needs to do on the cab corners. The box itself doesn't look too bad, but they usually don't look too bad from what you can see, but underneath it could be pretty crusty. Looking at the passenger rear, this part of the box is probably the squarest panel on the entire pickup here. A little bit of rust over the wheel well, and you can see the cab corner there is all gone, as they always are. Looking at the front front rake of the windshield there. I bet that is probably where the first blow was. So this more than likely went off the road and did an endo if you're a dirt bike person, and just crushed that front of the window. That would have been a wild ride for the occupants for sure. Again, you can see those are really stock, plain, just painted steel wheels. I'm betting they're 16-inch. So this would have been a pretty base model truck, or somebody put just plain wheels on, which I don't think so. So there you go. Now we get into the center of some good damage here. Boy, that cab is really pushed out of shape, and that front end, you can almost see those front fenders pushed down. I mean, the bumper corner is almost touching the tire there. But overall, it's still kind of straight, still kind of square, not bent in half. So the frame must not have been too rusty, or you would see that, have its own Carolina squat, if you will, where the front would be bent up or bent down or whatever. Definitely a good solid hit there. Looking over at the listing, it had 182,000 miles. It was your 350 automatic. Has keys, they said. So hey, that's great. Drive it home, right? This one is not listed as running and driving. Where in some videos we talked about that. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to drive this on a trailer. And looking at it from all the different angles, I don't know what is too salvageable. 182,000. Well, you'd have a engine, transmission, and rear end if the rear end isn't bent out of square, but not super valuable here. Maybe good for core. I don't know. Yeah, and there's your emblem on the door right there, K2500. So, well, you definitely see the roof pushed in. You definitely see the whole lean we've got going on here. So the hit definitely was a good hit on the roof, good hit on the driver's side there, all pushed to one side. Grill, headlights, bumper cover, all of that is just gone and disintegrated in a ditch somewhere. Some people that help clean up accidents, they rake it in, shovel it in, and throw it in the back of the truck or the back of the car. Then again, when the snow melts here in Minnesota, you'll see the remnants of every car accident that'll just slowly grow up in the grass along wherever accidents were. That's always kind of fun to see too. But yeah, I don't see a ton here that is salvageable. Estimated retail value, $6,316 according to the insurance company. Definitely has a salvage title here, and this auction hasn't gone to auction yet. And yeah, I don't know what you would want off of this, but maybe it would look fun in your yard. Maybe a good example of one of those vehicles they show off in a high school before prom that you shouldn't drink and drive. This might be a good talking piece like that. So there you go. You get the box or the back seat of a car that's been in an accident, box of a truck. They just kind of fill everything that's there. There it looks like your spare tire that was shot out of underneath. Anybody that knows the spare tires on any Chevy pickup, Suburban, Tahoe, etc., for these couple generations, they hang by a chain or a cable, technically a cable underneath the box, and you can see the holes there next to where the license plate would have been, the little black grommet on the right where the plate would have been, and you there's a tool that goes that down there, and you crank up and down. If you don't do that every now and then and don't keep it lubed, it doesn't move. So you're up there with a pry bar and a cordless death wheel trying to get it out. That box is definitely out of shape. You can see the tailgate would have popped loose on one of the impacts. Just throw her in the back. Yeah, she is rough. Looking at the bumper setup there, you don't see a ton of these that don't have a regular receiver hitch on it. So that probably would have been a factory bumper there. You can see safety chain hooks below that. You can see how crusty they are. And so this did get some work there, but that ball looks pretty rusty, like it hasn't towed anything in quite a while. Inside, you recognize that pattern well of the late 80s, early 90s Chevy pickups, Suburbans, Tahoes. There they are. Yep, you got that big white zip tie, so there are some keys there. But the roof, though, the roof is still in place, not down on somebody's forehead, so that is pretty good. You can see the driver's door bent out of shape. I would assume that got bent, at least the top pushed down when they were getting out the driver, would be my guess. I see a bunch of dirt and garbage inside the seats, so I would say that got shot in during its trip through the ditch. Windshield is what's left is what's left. As a 3/4 ton, technically, probably wouldn't have been required to have any airbags, and that's why you don't see any airbags popped on the steering wheel or over here on the passenger side dash. A little bit clearer picture of inside. Not a ton of junk in there, but if this was flipping around through the field or wherever, all of that would have got shot outside. Anything that wasn't hauled in, hopefully occupants were held in well too. Looking at the steering wheel, I see a chunk of rubber out of it. I know these steering wheels don't do that I've ever seen, so I wonder if something hit that and got it down to the metal. I'm not sure with that. But dash looks intact for the most part. There we go, looking at our Speedo 182,000. Rate what the listing said. You still had decent oil pressure and decent temp, and over half tank of gas when this was rolled. Oftentimes in an accident, those will freeze in place. And I don't remember on these years if it's a mechanical speedometer or electronic. Probably electronic. So I'm trying to remember what year they switched over, and so that's why there's nothing there. But yeah, real standard gauge cluster there for you to see what is going on under the hood. One thing to remember with the earlier Extend cabs is it wasn't until 99 with the newer Silverado, that 99 2000, depending on your model, that had a about 4 inches more legroom in the back. So these are pretty tight for any adult person. Someone younger or smaller would be okay. I don't remember when third doors were first added. Pretty sure not this gen. So little acrobatics were needed to get in the back. That looks like the owner's manual there, so at least you got that going on. But yeah, definitely a lot of panels out of place and just fabric hanging here and there. Under the hood, they have the universal hood prop, your really expensive snap-on pry bar, if I'm guessing just from the color of the handle. Looking under the hood, it looks like, I don't know, hard to see in there. Looks pretty stock, pretty average. You can see this had a transmission cooler or an oil cooler in the front. My guess would be a transmission cooler there. AC, then the regular radiator behind that. And yeah, that looks all bent crooked, so nothing there I would really salvage. There's part of the grill, so hey, that's a start, right? But further under there, you'd have your, pretty plain 350 TBI throttle body injection, which works well most of the time. It's got the 2 big injectors. It looks like a carburetor if you're not sure what you're looking at. And easy to tell if it's working or not because you can see the fuel shooting right out of the bottom of the injectors with the air cleaner open. So there you go with that. And then your VIN number if you're curious. So big picture, looking at this unit right here is, would you want this to rust away in your backyard or someone else's backyard? I don't know, not a lot to recover here. I would say earlier I was talking about this would be a good example to show young people of how not to drive when the weather is poor. And I would say that's probably a good example of this. More of a talking piece, learning piece than anything else. Other than that, Chevy Thunder is built Chevy tough, right? So It'd be cool to hear the story of what in the world happened here. And I don't see any of the those kind of hazmat or hazardous material stickers on there, so there would be a lot of, somebody really got hurt and they had blood inside. I don't see that, so hopefully everyone did okay that wasn't there. But with that being said, I'm going to do a hard pass on this guy here and go on to the next. But thank you much. Minnesota is Rust. Rusty Deals here at Minnesota's Rust, YouTube.com. We'll see you later.